You know, when you talk about readers, I'm wondering, only because at the book prizes, Bob, you heard the conversation about reading and engaging with books and the book-shaped object and all of that.
Yeah.
Have ebooks changed at all the nature of reading and writing crime fiction for you?
Not for me, no. A story's a story. All a Kindle is a different delivery system.
Mm-hmm.
People are still reading, you know, the words that I've chosen and ordered. So I don't think it, as far as the experience itself for the reader, A, I think it's generational, and B, the ultimate result is not, me personally, I like the smell of paper. I think I'm developing allergies to it. I do. You know, I've been a book person since I was a kid. I've been, God help my family, a collector since I was a kid. I have boxes and boxes of old moldy pulp paper. I just like it, and always will.
Do you think it makes a difference at all in terms of what becomes thought of as the book? I think specifically about David Baldacci, who I read a few weeks ago in the Times. His book is going to be packaged with the author interview and some other things. And it reminded me, Jeff, of the little film that you did about Iron River, where you talked about the guns.
Oh, the video, yeah.
Yeah, the video. Do you foresee a time where that becomes part of the reading experience, or do you expect that will always be separate and apart from what you do in the book itself?
You know, little extras?
Yeah, the little extras.
I don't know. But this, you guys might know more about this than me, but isn't there a form of short story right now being written by Japanese on phones?
Yeah.
You guys heard about that?
Yeah.
That's interesting, because that is an example of technology changing an art form, or helping to create one. So I would think that over the years, our you know, if we become electronic readers, it will probably have some kind of effect on what we do, in the same way that computers have affected the way that we write over typewriters. You know, maybe so. I think Bob's answer is probably the best. I mean, the story is a story to people. You know, we as readers want the same things, whether they're delivered to us on a Kindle or in the, you know, in the form of a book, and that will never go away. And I think. I mean, look how many people are in this room, and look how many people are going to go home tonight and watch TV, you know, dramas, and look at all the people reading books, you know, right now. What are you reading? We're all reading at least one book. I mean, we have this insatiable just urge to read a good story. We want good stories, and as soon as we're done reading a good story, we want another one, you know? So there's no end to stories. So we are all people lined up around the campfire still, I think, in some primitive kind of way, or in some modern way, good way.
I think there's a question about whether it's going to, you know, hurt the reading experience when the storytelling moves to electronics or books go away. I mean, right now, when we all grew up reading, and now what we've been writing, at least through the early part of our career before they had ebooks, was really giving readers a way of exercising their creative muscles. So they would take these words and create the room or create this character's face. And now with the ebooks and stuff, there's a demand for, especially with the advent of the iPad, a demand for content. And you know, I know my publisher is telling me they want to send photographers out to the places I mentioned in my book, so that when you read this on an iPad, you can push a button and see a picture of the LAPD.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so is that helping the reading experience, or is that making us lose our creative impulses? And that will be, you know, the question that will be answered.
Why don't you just run captions? Carrie's house. Carrie lives here.
Well, I mean, you know, if you really think about it, graphic novels. If you were to make a graphic novel come to life, it's almost what it is. It's storyboards.
Right.
Yeah, but Michael, even for years, you've been doing films about your books. You know, short films that talk about the setting, and you take people to locations and talk about what was on your mind, and you know, when you were writing a particular book. So you do that now in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, I do it carefully. It's not like something I'll just do this film.
Right.
You know, I worry about it, and that goes into what, you know, I present on my website. Now it's all going to be presented, you know, like on the reading machine.
Right.
So it's there's so many things about the machines that are interesting and unresolved. You know, from pricing to that question I have about whether this is detrimental to the imagination of the reader. But well, I guess we'll see. I don't have any answers to any of it.
Mhm. You know, it's interesting too, the other thing that it does, I think when things are electronic and there's less time from the time you write it to the time it's ready to be read, it also creates, or I'm wondering how you feel about this notion of branding. I mean, you look at people like James Patterson, who's got, 50 books out there, 5 co-authors, he's, got a 17-book contract. There's almost the notion that it's not so much a book that you're writing that you're putting the energy into, but you're putting a product on the shelf. And so I'm wondering how this trend and how the demand from publishers affects you. Do you feel it at all? Do you feel the pressure that, Michael, on occasions you've written 2 books in a year?
No, I think there's all kinds of pressure for branding and all that stuff, but it's not on the story. All you can do is keep your head down and write the best story you can write. I write at a pace that suits me. It has nothing to do with anything a publisher ever says to me. If I've written 2 books in a year, that was a good year because I was so energized and so excited about the stories. It was not a demand for more books from audience, from readers, publishers, anyone. I just do what I want to do. But once that manuscript is in their hands, then they start figuring it out. How do we brand this? How do we market it and all that? And there's a lot of pressures on that, but they're not necessarily falling on my shoulders.
Right, right. What's next? Jeff, you've talked about your next book. You want to talk a little bit about that?
What's next? The Border Lords is the title. It'll be out next year, early next year. It's done. I sent it in yesterday. Just floored the publisher. I've never gotten an editorial letter back from my editor on that. It was as laudatory and complimentary as on that book, so that made me feel good. Another Charlie Hood story, The Border Lords, of course. Easy to figure out the setting and all if you know the Iron River story. So kind of a continuation of that mood in that story, and I think may conclude my border trilogy, if you will.
Okay. Okay. But they need to read Iron River and get ready, don't they?
I would.
Yeah. I think you should get that book. Bob, what about for you?
Another Joe Pike book. Next year, January, I guess, The Century, which is a new Pike book. I should be finishing it now, but I'm here instead. And then after that, there'll be an Elvis book.
Okay. Okay. Any standalones that you're thinking about?
Oh, there's quite a few standalones that I'm thinking about. I just don't have time to write them.
Yeah.
I'm.
Maybe some ideas.
Yes, Jeff, I'll become your James Patterson. There may be I actually want to bring back Max Holman on the 2-minute rule. But again, it's just a matter of slotting it into my increasingly collapsing schedule.
Yeah. Michael, what's going on with Harry and Mickey?
Well, as you mentioned, there's a book called The Reversal will be out in October, and they're both in it. There's alternating chapters, which is something I've never done before. The Reversal, it's about a case that's a murder conviction that was reversed, but there's also, as writers like to do a little metaphor stuff. It's also about a reversal, and Mickey's a lifelong defense attorney, but he's a prosecutor, becomes a prosecutor, and it's about him, I guess, changing in that direction, reversing himself, you would say.
Yeah, and I imagine Harry's got a couple of reversals he's dealing with too.
Always, yeah.